Welcome all to another week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports on the Go Long Media channel on blogtalkradio.com. Appreciate all of you tuning in. I know a lot of you tune in each week through Blog Talk Radio. Some of you listen over to us on the Spreaker app. So if you don't have the app, you can download just in your Play Store or Google App Store. I guess if you have Apple Store, I guess you can do that. Go in there, type in Spreaker, like with R, Spreaker, and download the app. It's a star, if I remember right. Logo is a star. Listen to us live there. Thank you for all of you who are listening to the podcast version of the show over on SoundCloud or on YouTube or on one of the many places that we broadcast the show. We are working to, I think I might be doing the overtime segment tonight on Facebook Live if all things work in our favor. Great show planned tonight. A lot to talk about. We're going to key in, of course, on the New Year 6 games. The New Year's 6 games. That's the top 3 football games in the country. They were last night. I watched all 3 of them. And I will get into my breakdown of what to take from these games moving forward, either for moving into next season or moving into the draft, or which way. So I'll talk about that. Kevin Crest, my co-host, will join me here momentarily. We're also going to be getting into the college football playoff national championship game, which is next weekend in Atlanta. James and myself will be there to cover that game. So stay tuned to social media. Be close with social media, intimate. Snapchat. You can get me on Snapchat. Put a lot of content over on Snapchat, unique content over there as well. And my handle, as always, is at Matt Long Sports. So, show's handle, site's handle is at the CHT on sports. So, also tonight in the first hour, special guest. He joins us usually once a year. He is the linebacker coach for the Arizona Cardinals. He's also a former NFL player. He's kind of an all-decade linebacker, Clemson alum. Mr. Levon Kirkland will join us in the first hour as well at 9:30. Is that right? 9:30? 9:30? Right around 9:30. So, and then we're going to talk about Mike McCarthy got his extended by a year this year. And then on the flip side of that, Bruce Arian decided to retire. Arizona Cardinals head coach. He's retiring after this season. So now, we'll talk a little bit about what went into that decision and look at it, maybe a bigger picture. I believe there's 6 head coaching vacancies in the NFL. I'm just happy that Tennessee found a coach before, the NFL teams did. So I just think that was a positive for Tennessee. So let me welcome in my co-host. He's the author of the P.K. Frazier novel series. You may have heard him in the past on Lou in the Morning, and you might have caught a few of his articles on golf history online as well. It's Kevin Crest. How are you doing tonight, Kevin? amazing. I know. I agree. And when I picked Clemson, I figured that a different team would have shown up. But we've seen what in that game many times in the past, and turnovers early, mistakes made early, and it's not like there it was insurmountable going into the second half or even into the fourth quarter. But it just looked like Clemson after that first quarter, after that first, particularly that first half, they just seemed defeated already. Maybe it's because they were a younger team than they were last year. I mean, they lost some pretty significant players, both on offense and on defense. So um, this was kind of what we saw last night is what people kind of questioned coming into this year. I think preseason and even in parts of the season, can this Clemson team win a national title and get the job done in the manner that they had last year and even to some respect the year before that. And obviously, I think he came away with a pair of field goals, and that's all they were able to muster out of 4 quarters of football. Keep it down! I agree. Yeah. 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 Exactly. And I think with kind of hitting a little bit on Oklahoma, I think where they kind of fell off here. Yeah, Lincoln Riley is young. He is newer at this, less senior than many other head coaches. So is that part of it? Of course. Anytime you're newer at something, you're gonna struggle a little bit more than those who have experience. That's why experience is valuable. So it's expected. Now, on the other hand, I think he's a great play caller. I think one area and one thing that he did is he kind of pulled a Lane Kiffin. It's kind of reminiscent of Lane Kiffin, where at times he's really going, he's really feeling it, and then he gets a little too cute. And I think that's kind of what they did. The pooch kick was the guy getting a little too cute. But then, towards the end of the game, in the fourth quarter, and in overtime, particularly in overtime, again, I don't put this all on Lincoln Riley, but I put some of this on Baker Mayfield, and this is one thing that's really going to hurt Baker Mayfield for me. In crunch time, where you needed to push the ball downfield, either running or throwing, he decides to dump it off to the running back. And they really search for these short little bubble screens very early and throughout drives. And I think that they try to overutilize that. Now, I didn't in the UCF Auburn game, Auburn players were holding. There's a lot of defensive holding going on against the running backs of UCF when they came across the formation, but they were behind the line of scrimmage, so it was being allowed. For whatever reason, I guess because he's a ball carrier, it was allowed. But again, the explanations that they gave in that game really didn't match up with what they called. But we'll get to that later. But you didn't see that sort of a situation when Oklahoma had their backs open for check down, and that's what they did. They sat back, soft coverage, allowing that dump off, and they're just swarming on him. And he fed right into that. Those were situations where he should have did more to get outside of the pocket. He should have ran. If you're going to run, those screens, or if you're going to utilize slants and stuff like that, or other drag routes, then they need to get him out in a bootleg and get Baker Mayfield out in motion and moving him outside of the pocket because they're already back in soft coverage. What that does is forces somebody to come up, and that opens space up in the secondary where he could get it over the top and drop it in the middle of the field and utilize the big tight end that he always kind of has as a security blanket. But I didn't see him do that. I didn't really see them utilize the tight end much. They've kind of went away from some tendencies, but they were tendencies that were better suited for what was successful for them in the past. And I think that's some of the problem. Again, that's some of Lincoln Riley being his first time in this sort of situation where he is the head coach, and maybe somebody that's more senior might have made a different decision. Again, I'm not saying Stoops would have made a better decision because he's notorious, I would say, for kind of not getting it done in big games, I guess, too. So it was par for the course, but I think some of it had to do with him being younger. A few years down the line, he's probably closer to where Dabu, and he has co-offensive coordinators actually there too. So I think you see a little bit different of a story later on down the road in play calling and decision making once he gets more experience under him.
Well, I would say that it's a dilemma for the teams that run at pace, right? Which Oklahoma runs at a high pace, and so you come out in the second half, you're up by 14 points, and so one of the things that I've noticed this season, and not just college but also in the NFL, is a lack of really good clock management by coaches and coordinators. And so there's a dilemma there with Lincoln Riley going, okay, do I continue to run at pace? I've got a 14-point lead. He had a 17-point lead, but that had 14 at the end of the half. And so do I try to run some clock now, which in retrospect we can clearly say that was a mistake, right? Because had they stayed at pace, I think they would have worn Georgia down more on defense. I think they would have won the game. I really do. But the dilemma there is, well, if we run at pace and we don't run the clock down, we give Georgia more possessions, they're eventually going to wear us down because Georgia's got that really awesome running attack. And so I just think it was like a chess match, and I think Kirby Smart won the chess match. I think it's like, okay, that kind of coaching battle, which I thought was fantastic. I think it's great for college football. And, and the fact that Oklahoma lost doesn't mean they're not a good football team. It doesn't mean they didn't do a good job. They just got beaten, right? I mean, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. We could say the same thing about Georgia. If they had lost the game last time, we could say, well, what were they doing in the first half? Why weren't they controlling the ball better? We could poke holes in all those scenarios. Mm-hmm. But my feeling is that I think that Oklahoma got away from what they did in the first half in an effort to kind of manage the clock. I think it backfired on them because their defense wore down because they gave Georgia too many possessions. And so, yes, listen, there's 4 teams in the playoff. Only one can win the national championship. There's 128 teams in Division I. Only one can win the national championship. So you can blow holes in any scheme. You can look at the Auburn UCF game yesterday and go, what the heck was Gus Malzahn doing? Why did they lose that game? Well, they got beaten by a really good football team. I mean, UCF hasn't lost in a year. So, that's a good team. And so I think a lot of times we get perceived in the media as if we praise one, then we are perceived as totally criticizing the other. Oh my gosh, Matthew, that game came down to one play at the end of the game.
Yeah. One
play by Michelle in the end zone. One play after all those plays and after all that time. I mean, that's a coin flip. Those two teams, as far as I could tell, were dead even on the field for most of the game. I mean, it went back and forth. I can't tell you which team's better, but I can tell you one thing. Last night, the second game, Alabama was clearly better than Clemson last night. I can't say for the whole season, but I can say last night there was no question. Alabama was clearly better than Clemson last night. They, both coaching-wise, schematically, physically, and I don't know if Clemson wasn't ready for that, or I don't know what happened there, but I can clearly say that Alabama looked way better than Clemson did. But Alabama now has only 6 days to get ready for Georgia, not 5 weeks. And we've seen what, Nick Saban's better with time. That's why he doesn't lose. But, none of his former assistants have beaten him either. They're 0-11 against him. And so Kirby Smart has a heck of a challenge to try to get his team ready to beat his former boss, because nobody's done it. And so even though I wasn't an Alabama guy, I'd have to say right now, I mean, if you ask me to pick the winner based on history and based on experience and all that kind of stuff, and based on the strength of the Georgia team, which is the running game, and the strength of Alabama, which is the running defense, I've got to give Alabama a huge edge right now. I mean, I'm not talking about it. I don't know. I'm going to give them a 6 or 7 point edge right now, just because it's not a good matchup for Georgia. I really don't think
the opening line was -4. I saw last night. I think they had them at -4. Has it moved since then, or?
And that'll go up. That'll go up because people, the -4 is, what do you really think Alabama's going to win by? But as the money starts pouring in, I think it's going to go overwhelmingly to Alabama, and so that line's going to continue to rise just to adjust for the money that's being placed in Alabama. But I think right now, I think 6 or 7 points is probably a reasonable line, just because I don't know how Georgia attacks that Alabama defense because of what Alabama does. They shut down the running game and they make you throw the football. And I don't know, Georgia's got a two-headed rushing attack, and Alabama shuts that stuff down. So, we'll just see. But right now, my guess is, of course, I picked both games wrong last night. So, I mean, who the hell am I to be picking these things, accurately? But I wasn't alone, by the way. I mean, but I was surprised at the ineffectiveness of Clemson against the Alabama defense last night. I really was surprised at that. And under 200 yards total offense. Wow, that was my kudos to Nick Saban and his defensive coordinators for putting together a game plan that just shut Clemson down. And once they got those couple of turnovers in, late third, early fourth quarter, it was over. I mean, I was watching it. I actually went to a party last night, and I watched the first, little bit at the party, and an hour drive home, and I watched the rest of the game with my wife late last night. And when Alabama got up, that 17-6, it was like, this is over. I mean, you could see it, right? You could tell it. Clemson had nothing. They did no answers, right? I mean, once they got that pick six, and it was over. I mean, Clemson had done a hell of a job just staying close at 10-6. I mean, they had been battling all that time, and then they get a couple plays that don't go their way, and what was it, a minute and a half or something like that? It was over. I mean, it was the game was decided at that time.
They just looked deflated.
And so, but not but nothing against Clemson. Defending national champs, they get back to the playoffs. I mean, we tend to think about, oh well, if you don't win it all, you're no good. That's not the case at all. There were some really good football teams. I mean, did you see about the Big Ten? What about Ohio State?
Yeah.
What about Penn State? What about these teams that came in? I mean, there were some really good bowl performances by some good football teams, and they tend to get diminished because, oh well, Ohio State was fifth. Forget about them. No, don't forget them. I mean, they were fifth out of 128. They're really good, and they showed it against USC. I mean, they came out and played a really awesome football game. Wisconsin, against Miami in Miami's home stadium, by the way, right?
Yeah. See, I know a lot of people were feeling
the Big Ten really redeemed themselves.
They were feeling really bullish on Miami, and I kind of had that feeling, kind of similar to, like when they went to play Clemson, and I was like, I don't know that's why I say Wisconsin. I picked Wisconsin to win that game because I just figured that they would run out the clock on them and that they would be able to pass enough and predicate a lot of what they did off the run, and it worked because you have those really big, really good offensive linemen pushing guys around, and that's what I noticed. They didn't let the quickness and the athleticism of Miami take advantage of them, and that's kind of something that Miami hasn't really seen an offensive line like that. Their front seven hasn't seen an offensive line like that. So, whereas is Wisconsin, is that the best offensive line in the Big Ten? Probably third. They probably have the third best offensive line, I would say. But again, it's really good, a good offensive line, and that's what they do. They spread things out. They don't have too many tendencies on what they do, other than that they're going to run it. So, and Rick kind of plays down to competition at times. The turnover chain came out early. It didn't have the same feel as some of the turnovers in the past, and I don't think they really. And then Wisconsin just came out and kept hammering away, and got the victory. So in Ohio State, kind of a similar sort of thing. They just came out and showed we are a better team. We should have been in just like the year that they didn't, a couple years ago when they didn't get in. They came out and said, hey, listen, we should have been in. And they looked like they should have been in over a conference champion like Clemson. And it makes you wonder, does Alabama, Ohio State look different this year than last year? I don't know. It's a legitimate question. And this is the fun and interesting part of having a playoff system. It is.
Yeah. I still think, and I believe that the committee got the four best teams. I mean, Alabama, Ohio State were 4 and 4A, but Ohio State had that really bad loss, at Iowa, and I think that swayed the committee. I mean, Ohio State clearly at 12 and 1. They clearly would have been over Alabama, right? If they'd gone to Iowa and won that game and then beaten Wisconsin like they did, they're in. They didn't do it on the field. Alabama, for most of the season, did on the field. So, I still think they got it right. And of course, the proof's in the pudding last night. I mean, Alabama beat the number one team. And I think most people agreed on Clemson being the number one team. So I think the committee got it right. The question is, should we have 6 teams in? Because if you look at the way that Ohio State played and those kinds of things, you say, well, was there a place for them? There probably is, a place for them in that. I'm just, and Wisconsin was 6th. So they both took. Now, let's go back originally here a second and see how this worked. Okay, so Ohio State beat a number 8 USC, and Wisconsin beat a number 11 Miami. So
number 10.
In the scheme of things, well, I'm looking at I'm sorry. So I look at AP. Yes, wrong rankings. Yes, number 10. So, in essence, they both got to play teams that were ranked below them in the rankings, and so they should have won, right? I mean, that's how that should work, right? Given the rankings. So, to me, all that does is solidify the accuracy of the playoff committee, how they rank the teams, because the teams that were supposed to win won, and the teams that weren't supposed to win lost. Penn State. So all the Big Ten teams played teams ranked lower than them, right? Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State played USC, Miami, and Washington, and they beat them. Okay, that's supposed to work. So there you have it. I mean, I'm sorry. Penn State beat Stanford, right? It was Penn State, Stanford, yes. But nonetheless, so it worked out the way it's supposed to work in that respect. So the Big Ten had a good season. They had lots of good teams. They got screwed out of a spot in the playoffs. That happened because Ohio State lost to Iowa and then beat Wisconsin. If Wisconsin beats Ohio State, I'm pretty certain that they would have been in over Alabama. I believe that. An undefeated conference champion is not going to get beaten out by a one-loss non-division winner. So the Big Ten, to their own detriment, kind of screwed themselves a little bit in how that worked, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. See, that's the thing, is that I kind of stewed over. Does an undefeated Wisconsin team get in? I don't know. It's Alabama. Again, the committee, we can't, I mean, I think it's naive to say that the committee to lean towards them or feel that, in a tight situation that they aren't going to justify putting in Alabama. Obviously, the financial implications behind it. But and then how does that work out? Because Wisconsin, Alabama, again,
I don't know how.
I think because they're probably looking at Wisconsin, Alabama from last year, and at the beginning of the season, and that wasn't really a ball game.
Yeah.
Or 2 seasons. It was 2 seasons.
I don't know how. Yeah, but I don't know how the committee makes a case of keeping out a 13-0. Excuse me. A 13-0 Wisconsin, right?
Yeah,
12-0. Excuse me. 12-0 Wisconsin, right? No, they would have been. They'd have been 13-0, right?
Yeah, 13-0.
No, they'd been 12-0. Okay. Yeah, 12-0. A 12-0 Wisconsin team, Power 5, undefeated, conference champion. Because there's no tiebreaker now, because the record's better than Alabama. So there's no the reason it was in sort of turmoil this year was because everybody lost. And take UCF out of the equation. They're not. That's not going to be a realistic. I mean, it's as good a team as they had. That's a different argument. But you couldn't have kept Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin would have played their way in, and by the way, they would have beaten a really good Ohio State team to get there, right? So, I think Alabama sneaked in. Now, the other argument is Alabama better than Wisconsin? Yeah, maybe so, but you could also make the case that UCF's better than 6 teams ahead of them, right? I mean, I think UCF's better than Miami. I think they beat Auburn. But I think that argument, in terms of I think Wisconsin had a chance to play their way in. Ohio State had a chance to play their way in. Neither one did. Neither one played their way in. Did Alabama play their way in? That's a debate that at this point is totally moot, right? Because they're playing for the national championship. Did Alabama benefit from history, legacy, and domination the last 10 years? Yes, absolutely they did. They did. But
I think so. I think it's a closer game, but they beat him. I think they beat him, but through the defense. Yeah, it's gonna be. Mm. No, because he sent the paperwork in to the NFL, and he's clearly like graded a first round pick. But what the thing is, here's the dance is, and I think privately, they're kind of being signaled that neither of these guys want to go to Cleveland. Cleveland, they've kind of said, "Oh, we really like Baker Mayfield," but now this week, today, they're saying, Allen is, we think he's probably the next Carson Wentz. We're really high on him. I mean, again, this time of year gets the funny business goes on. Uh, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So they're saying they're heavy. They're heavy on one guy. Again, if it's not Rosen or Wentz, or if it is Rosen or Darnold, then it isn't going to be anybody else. They're not going to take Baker Mayfield #1 overall. Yeah, Baker Mayfield has been pretty accurate, but accuracy within systems is manipulatable. They can manipulate that. QBR is again, it's a manipulable statistic within certain systems, and that's why I like him. He's top five. I don't think I've spent enough time on watching his tape to tell you uh, where he falls in the first, second round. But from what I've seen, he looks like a first or second round talent. I thought that last year. Obviously, they didn't have the same amount of success this year as they did last year. He lost Hill, the running back last year, which is, I think, probably one of the most underappreciated kind of. He was kind of like the kid from San Diego State, kind of, had a bunch of really big games, ran for a whole lot of yards, and didn't really get talked about a whole lot because it's not a major conference, not a major team. But I think you know, they have a really good head coach. I'm not biased at all when I say that. But I think he's definitely in consideration of top 5 guys for this draft. Now, if I'm looking at this draft, to be honest with you, the guy I would put, if I was just judging off if all I could take is your bowl performance, the guy I would take with one of the top 3 quarterbacks, without a doubt, would be Mackenzie Milton. That guy looked like Brett Favre. He looked like Brett Favre, like just slinging, like it was just a sidearm slinging in between defenders, dropping. And the thing is, the one thing I really like about Milton, and I've watched several games, pretty quiet about some of these most of these prospects all season. But what I really like of Milton is he understands throwing guys open. I think that's one little niche that has given him success this season that guys don't have. I know Darnold doesn't do that, and Rosen doesn't do that. I know definitely Baker Mayfield doesn't do that. He's accurate, but again, within the system. And I think that's one little edge on a scouting wrinkle that I noted just watching bowl games. That again, Mackenzie Milton's he'll be back in Orlando next year, but he's a guy that I'd have him really high for next year's draft and paying close attention to. Yeah, it is much tougher. I mean, there's some things that you can. There are certain things that I kind of look at, matchup wise, what I like, but I don't think anybody really watches enough of these games, you included, to really get enough information to really make take a lot. Just both. I think we both picked Grambling, and Grambling won the entire game, and should have won. But it's just kind of an example. I picked that. I think. Well, I don't know. You don't think Wake beats them off coming off a bye? If they got them off a bye, I'd say yes. But you see, this is what's such a big advantage of neutral fields. And you know what? This is also where I will circle back to why it is BS that Alabama always schedules neutral site games at the beginning of the year against decent competition. Do it the right way. These neutral site games get money and they're a draw. I get it. It's a chance for both teams to go out. It's just like the neutral sites games, college football, like these big neutral site games, are no different than the NFL going to Mexico City or London. They're just money grabs, you know. I don't. I'm not saying that they are, but what I'm saying is they are the ones. If you played in the last three national titles and you played in six national championship games in the last 9 years, you shouldn't be scheduling neutral field games during the regular season and playing the second to last at all, and you should be playing nine conference games. Again, it comes back to these simple fundamental beliefs that I have that all college games should have. I mean, it's not equal playing ground. When you have the Big 12, when you have the Big 10 and the Pac-12, harder academically to get into schools, and then on top, it's mandatory for those conferences to play FBS schools. They can't play FCS schools. They have to play FBS schools. It puts them at an advantage. Michigan's tough to get into, just academically. I think Michigan's kind of in a similar situation as Stanford a lot of the time. Exactly. And And again, that's why I said this year the committee should have not had them in. They should have had Ohio State in and made a statement to Alabama. You didn't win your conference. You didn't play nine conference games, and you're playing directional schools throughout the season. And we'll go ahead and the neutral site game, but I mean the directional schools throughout the season. I mean they didn't play a lot of quality competition. The SEC may have the best and probably at least two other teams that deserve to be in the top, 10, but they're not the best conference. I mean, the Big Ten, I think, top to bottom, is the best conference. But again, what we have seen in the past, and the Pac-12 was much stronger. A couple years, we see them cannibalize themselves. That was kind of the argument for the SEC West. The West isn't. I mean, outside of Alabama, if Alabama was not in the SEC West, they weren't in the picture. I mean, I think for most years we'd probably have a different champion just about every year. I think it would just be a rotating door of who would win. I mean, we're literally what two years removed from Auburn only winning like 2 games. To say that, uh, that that any team stays up that high. LSU. I mean, I thought LSU was gonna pull it off. I'm pretty sure I picked LSU. I'd have to go back and look, but I mean, there has been struggles in the SEC, and we can see that they're not as strong as they once were. And this is again another reason why you can't judge how good a team is or how good a conference is based on so-called talent they put into the league. You know, nobody sits and looks at any minor league baseball team and thinking, "Hey, he plays for this minor league team. He's going to be a great pro." No matter, because that isn't a factor, and that's exactly what for now college football is. It's the only version of minor league, non-professional minor league football. You know, and I think, and I'm thinking about this the other day, get Ted Sudquist back on here some week and talk to him about it, because he's a couple times he's always been a big proponent of having like a minor league, but I just think that if you can provide pay and you can provide schooling, you know, to guys, I just don't see how, you know, how guys aren't going to start looking for that option. I just think that people are undereducated in like high school guys. This is why when Jennings made the decision to go play in Europe instead of going to college, I mean, if that's what you're in it for, it's just for the sport. You know, I don't know how they don't find that option. And again, I know the NFL funding it with their approval is huge, but at the same time, I can't see how guys that seem to be so much into the money of it. If you tell me, hey, I'm here for the money, student athletes should get paid, we should get paid for putting our bodies on the line, okay, then make the decision that you are going to you're going to work together, collectively bargain this. Student athletes do not have to play. There's just enough of them that you can't effectively boycott it or decide to do something different, because there's no other option. So work together, find people to finance an option, a viable option where you can get paid and play and make money off your likeness. Until then, you're in an internship called the NCAA. So, well, I'm not trying to do that, because I do think it is valuable and it is important, but and that and well, yeah, Jamello and then LaMelo out of high school. Is it? Can we? I think we should agree to. I'll agree to disagree with that because I think it's a little too early to tell if this is going to work or not. Again, I don't have an issue with them going to Europe and playing. I just the issue that we run into here is the team in Lithuania that they went to. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I just think they did a crappy job. Whoever their agent is did a crappy job of finding them a place to play. But here's probably why. Because LeVar Ball's brand, not Big Baller brand, but LeVar Ball's brand and what he brings with him, aka baggage, is not anything that a lot of people there want to deal with. Especially if you look over the past, year or so in politics and Brexit and stuff going on in Europe, they see these type of things. It feels kind of like propaganda, and we don't want to be involved with that. So the team in Lithuania is obviously going to make a ton of money off that. They're not making, was it You said $500 a week or something. Again, the point wasn't that what LeVar Ball was looking a month. Either way, it's crap. What LeVar Ball wanted to do, what he's trying to do, is it's going against the grain and saying that this institution of the NCAA cannot hold our only options for the future of our children. That's essentially what he's saying, which I agree with. But the choice of team was terrible. Pulling his son out of high school, again, I don't know what access he has to education, how he's being educated. I know LeVar Ball as a coach hasn't done, as a AU coach, hasn't done well with that portion, in my opinion, coaching his sons. And just looking at Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball, until he got to the NBA, did not play any pick and roll basketball, and that's essentially what his skill set should be doing in the NBA. He's not an ISO player. He's not a shooter. He's a pick and roll player and a distributor. And half of what his job is in the NBA, he hasn't been prepared for it till now. So again, it's a process. I think Lonzo Ball is going to be good. He'll have a long, successful career. Yeah, he is really good now, and I think 2 or 3 years down the line, I mean, we can't forget. Steph Curry. I mean, even Kobe Bryant. He played like half. I think his first season, his rookie season, he played. He started in like 30 some games. He started in 55 games, I think. I gotta have it here. I think it was like 55 games his second season, and then every season after that, he pretty much played every single game, just about all, but maybe except for a couple. Well, actually, the funny thing is, because I was talking to when people weren't giving any love to Kobe, and I said, this doesn't make any sense. Why? If you just look at the numbers, it makes total sense that Kobe is top 5, no question. I say top 3, no question, in my opinion. But I don't know. When I look at the value, if I look at valuation of somebody, I compare. I was doing my own little research on this, and there were 4 seasons where Kobe missed 20% of the season or more. Okay, 20% or more. So he still played some, but 20% or more, right? In those seasons, the Lakers only won 31% of the games, right? That's not good. Now, the 4 seasons, we would probably agree that Ron left Cleveland. We probably all agree that Cleveland was the worst basketball team in the NBA. Well, based on a value rating, The Cavaliers actually won over the course of those 4 years. They won 32%. So 1% more of their games with no LeBron James as the Lakers did in 4 seasons where Kobe missed 20% or more. So what that says is the valuation of Kobe Bryant for that remaining 20% of the season was tremendously valuable. More so than the Cavs not having LeBron James at all. So again, and with it, the Lakers won 64% of the games, and with LeBron, the Cavs only over his 12-year career with the 12 years he's been with Cleveland, they managed to win 61% of the games. So the Lakers were 30% or 3% better in winning ratio with Kobe Bryant and 5 titles. Well, 2 titles. Played in 5. Played in 4. Yeah, 1, 2, lost 2. With Kobe Bryant over the last 12 years of his career versus LeBron James. So, and that's just it. Again, if you look at the percentage of games and titles won and played against, Kobe's played in about as many over the course of his 20-year career and as many finals as LeBron did. And Kobe won 5 titles. So, and some people say, oh, we want to say it's Shaq. Well, Kobe won 2 titles after Shaq left, and Shaq had 2 stints with Dwayne Wade, won 1 title in Miami, played with LeBron in Cleveland, didn't win, and then played with the Big Three in Boston, still didn't win a title. So I'm just saying, the people want to pretend that Kobe Bryant isn't significant. And that's not even looking at the historic numbers for Kobe Bryant. And again, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I am going to ride the bottom out of the tangent here really quick before we get to our guests. Look at score, second most points scored in a career. He's one of, again, it basically comes down to Wilt, Jordan, Kobe when it comes to scoring in a single season, in a career, and in a game. Those are the 3 guys. So when you tell me he's not top 5, maybe he's not top 10, you're sniffing paint. I'll leave it there. But getting back into football and getting back into the New Year's Six games. I know we've talked extensively over this first hour of the show about them, and to welcome in a very special guest. He is the linebacker coach for the Arizona Cardinals. He's also former NFL linebacker, a 1990s All-Decade player, and Clemson alum. So we'll go easy on that. And in my opinion, a future Hall of Famer, Mr. Levon Kirkland. How are you doing tonight, Levon? We're doing great. I'm so sorry about Clemson last night. So let's kind of start with that. You'll make it. I know you'll make it. You're a strong-willed guy. What was it? Do you think that was so different? And I think it's more than just the quarterback position. That was so different about Clemson this year and Clemson last year. Yeah. 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 Got a bye week. No. 4 hours? Is it even 4? Mm. And this is, and you can also see it translating to the NFL, where even rookies, once you get past that once you get into week 15 and 16, not even talking about the playoffs, but week 15 and 16, a lot of rookies, even in the NFL, you start to see performance kind of tailing off. Just not used to playing, more than 13 games in a season. was like having that test you finished early. No, go ahead, Kevin. Now, kind of getting back into the NFL, I want to touch on a particular topic. The head coach, your boss, Bruce Arians, decides to retire after a pretty wonderful career. What is your feeling about his decision, and how do you see that impacting your team moving forward? How many jobs have that kind of perspective? Just any employer. Hmm. Oh, come on now. Okay. Uh, you didn't know he goes to FAM? He watched FAM games? You didn't know that? Yeah. School. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever climb the camelback while you were there? Did you ever climb the camelback mountains while you were there? Come on now. That's good. Oh, uh, they got the kiddie trail, you know. They got the. You didn't have to go to the peak. They got the kiddie trail. I'm just messing with you. I feel you. Most not good. Yeah, I've talked to a few guys. I've talked to a few guys who've been in the league in the playoffs, and they just tell me that the intensity of the playoffs is so much different because the kind of through the season you can pace yourself to an extent, but the playoffs are win or go home. So it's a next level of amount of energy that they're exposing in a game, and it seems everything's a little bit more painful. You seem a little bit more tired. It's hard to wake up the next morning and get out of bed. Um, it, did you experience kind of a similar sort of situation? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that's a better way to put it. Well, yeah. They're walking. It's now one question I wanted to ask you, and just because it's been in the news recently. Now, I think it's somewhat more of a fan issue. I'm sure it does have ramifications with teams, uh, but with James Harrison getting cut and then going to a rival like the New England Patriots, is this something that in the locker room that you would have felt like, you know, that's kind of it's kind of whack. I mean, you're going to go to a rival of all teams. Is this something that I've always felt more like a fan side of it because it is a business. Guy gets fired from his job, he's going to find another job, and if your biggest competitor offers you the job, that's that's their fault for cutting you, or firing you. What's your feel on that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Tact. Yeah. It's kind of a best case scenario, you know. Yeah. 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 And it was a 2-year contract too. He signed a 2-year deal with New England. They're all on tape already. Uh, just to kind of leave on a little bit different note, Levon, what New Year's resolution did you make that you think you will most likely keep this year? Mm-hmm. Those are the best ones. Now you said books, so I kind of have to follow up with that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I maybe appreciate that more because I'm a father, but that maybe a younger me wouldn't appreciate that as much. But I have twin 5-year-olds, so it's I uniquely appreciate that and reading as well. Now, our co-host Kevin Kress is an author, but what one book would you recommend for people? You can't use the Bible, can't. That's a library. I count that as a library. What one book would you recommend for me to read? I'll send you over some recommendations. Some fiction. Yeah. Hmm. You know, one thing that I did. It's in crayon, so it's right down my alley. Hmm. Are are you teaming up with Are you teaming up with somebody there in South Carolina for the combine work, or are you traveling nearby for that? Okay. Yeah. That's Yeah, I've heard a lot of really good things about them. A lot of the guys I talked to last year at the Shrine game, a lot of guys were over there. I stop in with Yo Murphy every year and checking on a lot of guys preparing for the combine. So I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy that sort of stuff. But I don't know. It's not really headline stuff, but yeah, yeah, yeah. See that I have a saying. It goes, "Life happens and you don't choose when." So it's all about the decisions you make when life happens. So uh, yeah, so that's a wonderful thing. Sounds like you have a lot of great opportunities ahead of you. And as always, if there's anything I can do to help you out, brother, always, you got my number. I appreciate you coming on tonight with us. Right. Probably won't run into you in Atlanta this weekend, then, I guess. It's amazing. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate having you on tonight. Bye. Thank you. The great Levon Kirkland, ladies and gentlemen. So, still a lot of the show left. We got about an hour left on the show. We are in the overtime segment of the show, so there's no more calling. If you're on the line now, great. I see a few people are sitting on the line, and for those of you who are still listening, you can still listen live over on the Spreaker app. So if you did happen to catch this portion of the show on either SoundCloud or over on our website, thechtonsports.com. And in the overtime segment, it's not live on Blog Talk or the website. It's only live on Spreaker. So you can go over, download the Spreaker app. It's free to download. The little logo is a star. I double checked. And you can listen to the entire show unabated on the Spreaker app. So definitely check that out there. So Um, are you hanging out a little longer, Kevin, or are you done tonight? Yeah, he's a yogi. Did you know that? He's a yogi. He's a yogi. Yeah, he's into yoga. That makes him a yogi. He loves hot yoga. Hot yoga. It's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Crest. So head on over to Amazon, everybody. Buy those PK Frazier novel. There's three, the series. Uh, if you go over there, just buy all three. Just get them all. Get it out and avoid the inevitable because there's going to be a rush on those. So uh, he has a new book that will come out before too long. I know he past week he was finishing up some of the writing on the fourth book of the PK novel series. But I want to bring on now. He is one of our lead contributors, photographer for the Cold Hard Truth on Sports for college football, as well as the editor for boxing and the host of the Boxing Source radio show every Sunday here on Blog Talk Radio. Mr. James Bell. How are you tonight, James? Levon Kirkland's a pretty cool guy, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, James, you know what makes me really sad? That fan would let a guy like that go. Like, I don't get that. I don't get that. It's obviously needed, but it just he's an awesome guy. So he's always been great on. I think it's probably the fourth time I've had him on the show. I I text him back and forth every now and then, but really good guy, really good guy. So yeah, we'll definitely have him on again in the future. So so what did you make here of the final six? These New Year's six games, the final six games really the highlighted six games of the season. I know at the end of the U.S. Youth game, their their AD claimed after a perfect 13-0 season and up. I don't know if it's an upset. I picked UCF to win, knocking off Auburn, who at one point in time was a pretty solid look for one of the top four teams. Claimed that that they're national champions, and I've understood that he may be he may be putting in a claim to the NCAA and the committee to have a share of the national title after going 13-0. So that'll be interesting. I don't know how far that goes, but it'd be very interesting. It's very interesting, Memphis twice. They played Memphis twice. They were ranked top 10 both, or top 25 both times. I mean, we can't you can't discount Memphis being in the college football playoff top 25 because they were in the top 25 before the college football playoff, and then they remained in there throughout. Memphis beat UCLA at the beginning of the season. Okay, here, yeah, I get it. I get it, but here's the problem. The issue I have with it is saying that, hey, they're, Memphis, because they're in the AAC and not the ACC, that they're somehow a worse team. They are, it's a two-sided, it's a double-edged sword. Truly it is. Because, yes, do they benefit from having the schedule in the conference that they're in? Yes, they do benefit from that. But, they have schools like Navy, tough play, again, bowl team, 7-6. They're a tough team. You can't tell me that Navy on the schedule wasn't a quality win. Houston, another team, 7-5. Bowl game they should have won, but they barely lost. Again, good quality team. USF, your alma mater, 10-2. I mean, you can't look at that team and tell me they're not a quality win. They beat Memphis twice. They beat USF, and then they go and beat Auburn. I mean, it's tough to sit here and really discount UCF because they're in the AAC. If the Big 12 would have moved forward and stopped, dancing around with their pecker in their hand and made a move, UCF, USF, I guess probably Houston, and either Memphis or Connecticut would be in the Big 12. And this wouldn't even be the conversation. This wouldn't even be the same conversation because they're in the Big 12. Now, can you tell me that team is any different in the Big 12? I mean, we clearly seen that technically the second best team, if you go by ranking like that, they lost in the conference championships. The UCF beat the second best team at worst, the third best team in the SEC. Ooh, I mean, a lot of people, I don't agree with it, but a lot of people think the SEC is the best conference in college football, especially this side of the Mason-Dixon. So, I mean, it's easy to say, you play Houston, you played Tulsa, you played SMU. It's not, you didn't have as tough of a schedule. Memphis, you played the same kind of competition. Yeah, you beat UCLA, but I mean, what kind of way are we putting into UCLA? I mean, it's really easy to step back and discount. I mean, I do it with Alabama all the time on purpose. Alabama's, for all intents and purposes, probably going to win a national title come Monday. Barring Georgia putting something remarkable together with a freshman quarterback, it's truly, again, I don't even think Alabama should have been in the last four. Maybe I'm kind of alone on that, and it's more of a principle thing. More on principle than necessarily are they deserving of, are they good at a national title? Yeah, they're good enough to win a national title. I think Levon Kirkland bring up a great point. I mean, essentially, the fourth seed team got treated as a number one overall seed and got a first week bye, where everybody else, that's the 1, 2, 3 seed, still had to play in. So you had 6 teams that had to play in. See, this is this is why I say this is another reason. Again, I didn't say it in those exact words, but this is another reason why conference champions should have more of a leg up getting in. This is why I thought Ohio State should have been in. They played 9 conference games. They played Oklahoma out of conference. Of course, they lost. Yeah, did they lose to Iowa? They got ran by Iowa in Ames. Is that a problem? It's not a good look, but I don't put a ton of weight in that because Iowa always plays good in Ames. They did it to Michigan last year. They've done it to Nebraska. Nebraska a couple of years ago. Pelini's, I think it was Pelini's last year. Like, that's what happened. I think that was one of the things that kind of sent him out the door because that loss stopped them from getting to the Big Ten championship. So it's kind of it's sort of situations like this. It's tough to say. I don't put a ton of any remarkable amount of credit into Ohio State getting blown out. Does that mean they're bad? It means they had a really bad game. I don't think JT Barrett is a pro quarterback. I will see him in a couple weeks, about a week and a half to be more specific. Down in Tampa, he will be at the Shrine game. So I will see then. I'll talk to him then. I'll get his takes. If I would imagine he's not just going to work out as a quarterback. I would imagine he's going to work out at several positions. I will definitely ask him about that and encourage him to. I don't know how much that we'll weigh into that, but still, nonetheless, it'll be it's tough for me. Memphis is a good team. I mean, Memphis is a good team. UCF is a good team. Obviously, we go 13-0. You did things right. And again, it wasn't like they were just beating teams. Like they were beating everybody pretty handily. And that's just the thing. The 2 teams they played close, the 3 teams that played close all year were Memphis on the second try. And that was no victory for a double overtime victory actually for the AAC championship game, and USF, which was the week before, and they had one loss then, right? They had one loss. It was undefeated. They were undefeated. They were undefeated at that point. So 2 undefeated teams then. They did. Oh, yeah, that's right. They had 1 loss, yeah. But still, high praise for them. High praise for them. Looked like it was going to be a really good game, and it was. And it truly was a good game. And then in the Peach Bowl, where they went up 14 points and was able to hold off to win by 7. So, again, I can't really discount UCF what they did. They can only play who's in front of them, and if they don't have the opportunity because they're captive to a conference, then what can they do? I mean, what else can you do? And now because they're captive to that conference, because a bigger conference doesn't bring them in, now you don't give them a shot. I don't know. It makes me wonder. What if UCF played Clemson? I don't know. I mean, we see them beat Auburn, and we've seen how Alabama kind of were kind of a buzzsaw, and it just didn't look right, And I watched, again, UCF. They were very convincing against Auburn with their play, and very creative with creating opportunity. And I'm telling you, man, Mackenzie Milton looked like probably the best quarterback of the bowl season. Like, he was looking like Brett Favre out there, sidearm slinging, ball in between defenders, but still having some touch over the top, throwing guys open. That was, I mean, I've watched him throughout the season. I've seen some of these things throughout the season, but he was cool, calm, collected, exceptional in the Peach Bowl when he needed to be. He had little jitters in the first beginning of the game, but who wouldn't? He probably would have had the bubble guts. Yeah, yeah. Who doesn't have butterflies in that situation? Kind of a sociopath, are you? I mean, huge game like that. You're not nervous at all. Something's probably wrong with him. So, Alabama. Because this game, again, if Alabama and Clemson play this game again, I don't think this is the same outcome. I definitely don't think it is because it just seemed like they got down early and that pick six just seemed to deflate Clemson. And then nothing worked. I don't know. What was your depiction of that game? The thing is, the funny thing is, the fu- the funny thing is, if Georgia beats Alabama, that really says that the third best team in the SEC got to play for a national title against the best team in the SEC, clearly because Georgia won. You know, so and that's the crazy thing. So if they beat them, see, this is the big debate, and what change may come is if Georgia wins pretty handily. And the thing is, I don't know. The more I'm thinking about it, just throughout these last, I don't know, 20 minutes, since I uttered the words Alabama for all intents purposes will probably win, I'm rescinding that. I don't know. It's going to be tough. I'm going to have to save my pick for this weekend in Atlanta. So people have to, you know, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Well, I think that's pretty accurate. And the thing is, in kind of looking over at and it makes me look at it, and I'm even more curious because Georgia was able to score, obviously, a lot of points. Both teams scored a lot of points, but the fact that Oklahoma was go up early on Georgia, but it was with. But the funny thing is, it's with an offense closer to like what Lane Kiffin put in and had installed there at Alabama that they went away from since he's left. And it's in Hurts. I know there's tons of sense behind it, but I don't see him as really a good quarterback. I don't think he's a good quarterback. He's an athlete. He can throw the ball a little bit, but he's an athlete, so he can run, and that's more so where Alabama is at. He's more option quarterback than dual threat, I think. Um, to Jalen Hurts. Um, and again, I go back over and I kind of look at Alabama's, their schedule. Again, not super impressive. I mean, decent. I mean, Florida State. Nobody thought Florida State was going to be what it is, but clearly all they need to do is lose a quarterback, and they're not very good. They were barely a bowl team. Some reported they weren't even eligible for bowl teams. Fresno State was much decent. That was a quality win. Colorado State was another bowl team. Vandy, people thought that could have been the game. Vandy did something, but clearly didn't. Ole Miss, wasn't anything there. I mean, they're close to facing Shank. They're in the midst of a 2-year bowl ban, self-imposed scholarships. Plus, I guess they had 11, and then they tacked on 2 more, so they lose 13 scholarships, if I remember right. And Luke, which is a win-win for him, truly. Really not a ton of expectations there. And if he does do something, then obviously it's even better for him. Texas A&M, close game. We've seen Texas A&M lose to Wake Forest. Pick Wake Forest to win that game, actually. Arkansas game wasn't close at all. Tennessee wasn't close. LSU should have been a little bit closer than it was. It was definitely closer than what the score indicated, I think. Lost there. And, we get in there. I think they were like a 3-loss top 25 team. But yet UCF, who beat Auburn by essentially the same margin as Auburn beat Alabama, essentially the same margin. They wouldn't allow them to go above 15 until the final week when they beat Memphis for the second time, win the championship, and then they stick them at 12. I don't know. It really sits really sour with me to say UCF was not a top 10 team. I don't know. It's just a sour feel for me to say that they're not even a top 10 team. And then I think the committee said, hey, we'll match them up against Auburn, a team that should shellac them, in our opinion. And then Auburn loses. And I don't think this was a case where Auburn didn't want to come to play. Kind of like some people said when Alabama lost to Boise State. I don't buy it. Yeah, to Utah. Who, and do we remember who the coach of Utah was? I'm pretty sure that was wasn't that Urban Meyer? That was the coach of Utah. Pretty sure. That's kind of the lead into him getting the Florida gig. So I don't think it was because Boise State beat Oklahoma. I think that's what it was. Boise State beat Oklahoma. That kind of in that bowl game. But Stoops is never good in bowl games. It really wasn't. It's amazing he ever won a national title. To be honest. Yeah. Mississippi State, clearly not the number 16 team with 3 weeks to go. They just weren't. Still aren't. Then you play Mercer. It's essentially a scrimmage game against the local high school, and then you lose to Auburn. So, what? So outside of LSU, again, LSU is number 19, 3 losses, number 19. So Alabama, again, I'm just thinking like Stanford. Stanford had some losses early, and they had to work their way back in with their 3 losses. They basically had to win out the rest of the season and then, be a conference champion to get any sort of rub. And even then, they're ranked, if I'm correct, they're ranked above UCF. I don't know. It's crummy. You know what I mean? I mean, we say just because they're not in a Power 5 conference. I mean, Memphis lost by 1 point to Iowa State, who really handled Oklahoma at home in Norman, and went down to the wire with TCU. So the 2 conference championships, it basically, they were 1 possession from beating the second best team. They were like the 3rd best team in the conference by who they beat. So I mean, it's I don't know. It's really tough for me to say that UCF didn't have there wasn't merit. I mean, when you look at the obviously this is all in hindsight. And hindsight's always 2020. So I mean, looking at the grander scheme of things, and then looking back over the schedule now, it's really tough to see what it is before the season. I and it's tough for me to give a lot of weight. And it's funny because Tennessee last not this season, but last season was preseason ranked like number 3 or number 5 and flopped. And then this season, I think they were top 15 and flopped. And it was just a fiasco. I'm just happy for Tennessee. They were able to find a head coach before one of the NFL vacancies was filled. That's what I'm just happy that they were able to do that, get some clarity at that position before NFL teams started to hire coaches, because that would have been bad. I mean, NFL clearly plays for another like month and a half after the regular season for college football, and to you know we have boxing this month. Is there something big this month for boxing? Is there something that's big this month for boxing? Yeah. That'd be a good time. Yeah, that sounds. That might be. I don't know. Yeah, that probably might be. You're going on all the media stuff too. Yeah, you're doing all the media events too. And they're I gotta tell you, the story, and you'll appreciate this. So my daughter, she's 5, started taekwondo today, right? And it's defensive type fighting, so it's like block, kick, punch, right? And he has my daughter doing a series of punches. Now, I've had my daughter in the gym with me before and getting close with the heavy bag, but he has a hand bag about 2.5 feet away, and she starts punching. And I didn't prompt this, but she went into the Wilder windmill. She elected to go Wilder windmill on the handbag. And I'm kind of sold it might be an effective form of punching for a 5-year-old. But Who who's that night? Is that you know, I don't know if you got into this on your show yet. I know you were off this past week, but Dana White showing interest in promoting boxing. I don't think it's a bad idea either way. I know this past few weeks he's met with Floyd's people, with Mayweather Promotions. He's meeting with Al Heyman. He's going to meet with Eddie Hearns. Basically everybody, in his words, everybody but the crazy lunatic Oscar De La Hoya and Bob Arum. He had nothing else. He just said Bob Arum, but he made it a point to say that Oscar De La Hoya was a crazy lunatic. So those are the only two people he wasn't going to talk to around boxing. But he's interested. He's going to wants to get into boxing as a promoter, more so like a matchmaker in boxing. He thinks that there's room to make things happen for himself. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think it's going to be like him for boxing? Because I know the sport of boxing, if people haven't realized it, they're not really welcome to outsiders. Dana White isn't exactly an outsider, but he's pretty much branded himself MMA. I don't know how welcoming they'll be to him coming into the sport and wanting to do matchmaking and promoting here in boxing. But what do you think? Didn't he file? Yeah. Rock Nation. I know we've kind of talked about this at length before, but Rock Nation, for those people, I mean, familiar with Jay-Z, most people are. Andre Ward, Guillermo Rigondeaux, and Miguel Cotto. And that's the show.